I want to ask the question that I'm sure I'm just going to be unprofessional and ask it.
It's actually terrifying, and the thing is that can happen with almost anyone. You don't get born with schizophrenia necessarily. It can be a predisposition.
Is there one life lesson that you think that you can, I don't know, teach us?
Remember to come to the Boiler Room Bar on the 14th of March because we have an amazing fundraiser event.
Is it offensive to say schizo? Or it is a name for someone in that field? If you know, you know. How's it, guys? Welcome back to the Baascast. My name is Christo de Beer and this is my cast. I am very happy to welcome my special guest and representative of House YANA, Linda. YANA House. Why do I keep saying House YANA?
It doesn't matter. We registered as YANA. We're just at the house to clarify it's a house or a house.
I'm just going to keep this as the intro, so hi. Man, it's so nice to have a nice person on my show. Not that the rest are bad, but I mean, people who literally make their living running a charity, a charitable thing that's making life better for those less fortunate, in my opinion. I just want to start by saying thank you. I salute you. It is nice to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Now, listen, let's just get the advertising side of things out of the way. Why are you here? What do we hope that people will remember out of this chat other than the deep things we're going to get into?
They need to remember to come to the Boiler Room Bar on the 14th of March because we have an amazing fundraiser event for YANA. It's called Jam for YANA.
Can you tell me a little bit more about the lineup, though?
Yes. Misa Libba, Alwyn, Kotze, Wagersnel, Reiter Piet, South African Blues Society, the C. Louis Leipold Band.
That is a tongue twister.
Yes.
C. Louis
Leipold Band. And John Henry Opperman van Klopjag.
14th of freaking March 2026, Boiler Room. You better be there.
I'm very excited. And there's also an auction, which is usually a highlight. They've got meat hampers and airline tickets. And
is Bryboy doing it again?
Yes, Bryboy is doing it, so it's always fun. There's a meat smoker on auction as well. Yeah.
I remember that last year's auction raised a ton of bucks, but can you just quickly, let's get into that. What is this in aid of? Why did we raise money and what does it go towards?
So YANA, it's an NGO, non-profit organization. We house 55 persons that's been diagnosed with schizophrenia, housing, food, clothing, therapy. The point is community integration. So that's what we do.
Community integration, we will get into that. But in a nutshell, the money that we give and raise with that event then goes towards essentially helping people with an illness.
With an illness, yes.
To be able to be integrated functionally into society in a manner with which they are comfortable.
Yes, to reach that optimal level of functioning, which would be different for every individual. To help them reach that, maintain that in a community that they can have quality of life.
I can imagine that really does not come cheap because, if I just take how difficult it is integrating a person with no disabilities into society functionally, just to look at it from the perspective of someone coming with the challenge, I'm keen to learn a lot more about schizophrenia in our chat. And I reckon, cool. Can we set the event bit aside?
Yes.
We answered all the questions that we have to.
I believe so.
Great. Media brief set aside. I'm just really curious to talk to you about schizophrenia because, growing up, you hear the words, you make the jokes, you have the associations. And I mean, I'm just going to be brutally honest. Growing up, you think that schizophrenia means that, I've got multiple personalities. And, you call people schizo if they're a little bit crazy. And in the last few years, I've become a little bit more attuned to the fact that mental health really freaking matters. And as much as physical disabilities, mental disabilities are debilitating. And it's not just limited to what people used to think was, okay, cool, you're a Down syndrome person, that's a mental disability. Can you tell me just a little bit, or a lot of it, what is schizophrenia actually?
Okay, so that's just to start off. That's a very common misconception is that schizophrenia is the same thing as multiple personality disorder. It's not. It's completely different. There's no extra personalities. It's a person with their core identity, with the one personality. that has a break with reality. And that's caused by a chemical imbalance in the brain and neurotransmitters. So it's similar like cancer, where this mutation, it is an illness of the brain. The neurotransmitters either doesn't pick up the brain chemicals, or the brain chemicals isn't produced to a sufficient number or overproduced. And that causes symptoms, positive symptoms and negative symptoms. So positive symptoms we see as everything that gets added to the norm. That's hallucinations, delusions. You see, smell or hear things that other people don't.
So when you say positive, it's not necessarily a good positive.
It's not a good positive.
I mean, you said hallucinations, and I thought,
it's not the good part of hallucinations. It's just positive as an added to the norm. To the norm. That could also be delusions, paranoia.
Sure.
And the negative symptoms is the opposite. It is not worse than the positive symptoms. It's just things that are taken away, or that's less.
Such as your bind with reality gets taken away.
Yes, so you lose motivation. Things that you enjoyed previously no longer gives you joy. You have a lack of motivation. A big thing is disorganized thinking, where you could have before followed logical steps through from point 1 to point 10. That becomes scrambled.
Is that tied to ADHD in a manner, or is that, different ship, same destination? I get scrambled between numbers.
So I'm not a neurologist, but in your brain structure, there's different parts of the brain structure that is affected of schizophrenia. Frontal lobe, that we know a lot before of, but we also see it in the cortex, which is newer research, and that is the center of your brain that has to do with motivation and drive and reward systems. And that also doesn't function properly. So I'm not sure on the science behind ADHD and how that connects, but it's very unique in that flat effect. Sometimes they won't really show a lot of emotion, or they struggle to identify emotion in the correct situation. So there's some social disconnect as well.
I think we all run the risk in diagnosing someone with a certain mental challenge when it's completely different, because what we see in the movies or what we hear of in public, or just, my friend was diagnosed with this and I see the same symptoms with you. Because if I look at the symptoms you've mentioned, it really sounds a lot like depression. Some of it just sounds like being a psychopath. Some of it sounds a bit more like ADHD. Do you see a lot of people come into YANA? And just to say, YANA is spelled how?
YANA. It stands for You Are Not Alone.
You Are Not Alone.
Yes.
Nice.
Yeah.
Do you see a lot of people coming into YANA house that think they've got schizophrenia, but it's actually one of the others? Or how do you discern who should be there?
Yeah. So for our admission, you have to have a diagnosis by a psychiatrist. You have to take your medication, because if you experience too much of the hallucinations and the disorganized thinking, that goes over into psychosis, where the person is completely disconnected with reality. So to stay with YANA, you need to be stabilized on your medication. That kind of helps manage that. And you stay with us and we manage the negative symptoms. We motivate you, we help with the organized thinking, we help with the quality of life.
So your bit comes in more in the activities, the management of, as you say, integration into society, not so much the medical side of things.
So we strict on meds compliance. You need to take your medication, and we help give feedback to the psychiatrist, but we make sure they take their medication.
Okay.
But we are more of the other management of their life and the long-term taking care of them. So a lot of our guys are with us long-term. It's a lifelong illness. It's not curable. It can just be managed very well if you do take your meds, and structure is a very important sense of safety.
Can you just tell me the average experience of a person suffering or living with schizophrenia? What's the term that we prefer? Suffering with, living with, suffering from?
Living with schizophrenia. It's a very wide spectrum. You can get someone diagnosed, they take their medication, they go back to work, they have a family. You wouldn't say they have schizophrenia. And then you get the worst case, which is permanently in a closed facility, like Westkoppies, where it's not possible to stabilize them to effect that they can be in the community. We cater for those in between. They don't need to be in a closed facility. They can have a normal conversation, but they're unable to have full-time employment. They're unable to either deal with the stress or integrate or complete the tasks. And then, like normal population, some of them are incredibly smart. Some of them have cognitive difficulties. It's very a wide spectrum that we look at. So yeah, when we admit, it's mostly on referrals, but we also really make sure that you will benefit from our program.
So when you say now, there's obviously a scale or a level or spectrum to it, but some people can easily have a normal home life versus others that can't function normally as members of society. Is schizophrenia episodal, or is that when it's constantly there, just it's less intense in some people? How does that work?
It is constantly there, but not acute. So if you're on your antipsychotics, you're on your mood stabilizers, you won't necessarily have delusions or hallucinations to the extent that you can't function. That's kind of eased out, but you still struggle with the lack of motivation and the negative symptoms. So it's a diagnosis that you always have schizophrenia. The way you manage it, if it's well managed, it's not acute. Acute is usually when a person needs to get admitted, where you can't reason with them because their experience of reality is not but the rest of us experience. Actually terrible. You asked a bit earlier about that, how the average day of a person is. So in acute psychosis, it's actually terrifying, and the thing is that can happen with almost anyone. You don't get born with schizophrenia necessarily. It can be a predisposition, but usually it only comes late teens, early 20s for males and later 20s for females. So you could live a normal life up until you go to varsity, and then something goes wrong and then you become psychotic, and then there's a diagnosis of schizophrenia. But it's that experience when you're acutely psychotic is you cannot trust your senses. As clearly as you hear my voice now, someone tells you that isn't real. That is the experience, and it's very scary.
So it really is like you see in the movies, and they say, well, what was that one movie? I want to say F. Anyway. And
I've not seen a movie in which I've not ever seen any movie where they refer to schizophrenia where I feel it's a very accurate display.
Okay. Well, because I want to ask the question that I'm sure I'm just going to be unprofessional and ask it.
Yeah.
Does that make you crazy if you're schizophrenic? Does that mean that you're a crazy individual, or where does that fit into the spectrum? Because should we be scared of someone with schizophrenia that they're going to attack us, or how does that work? And that's the one part. And then I really need to stand still on the hallucinations part of things. But first, should we be scared of schizophrenic people?
So the reason I love my job is most of the people in our organization that live there, I find them to be a better person than the average guy walking out there. They have, maybe it's also that thing that once you've lost a lot in life, you become just generally a nice, relatable person. So they have really kind hearts. The only threat of violence is when a person is acute psychotic and they believe you're going to harm them. So that is when it's untreated over a period of time. There's acute psychosis. You cannot reason with them. They keep hearing voices or seeing things, or one of the delusions is false beliefs. They believe you're trying to hurt them, or they believe some entity is communicating with them or with you to harm them. And then obviously as a human response, fight or flight. Some fight, some run away. So that's the only element of violence. But actually, it's quite a long path to get to that point with a person. I mean, that would really have to be someone that doesn't get any medical treatment for a long period of time. Usually you can pick up the person becomes withdrawn. What they say doesn't really make sense. They seem different. And then usually people start seeking advice and gets onto the route to get to a psychiatrist who can make a diagnosis.
Do you find it's mostly the person themselves that start seeking the help, or is it those around them that notice first?
Those around them. It's often here when I sit, I wouldn't believe that is something that's happening to me because it's my reality. It feels so real, this belief or this whatever. It's difficult to question that because it's your reality.
So what should you then actually do? I will still get back to the delusions, but you mentioned now if someone's acute and, they're having a episode, is that the right phrasing?
Yeah, you can.
What should you actually do then? Should you just lock the door and pray they don't hurt themselves, or what do you do?
Yeah. So best thing is firstly to stay calm. Don't disagree. Just agree. Keep the person calm. Be very clear. Be clear in what you are doing or what you're expecting. And then phone, get help. Usually EMS services knows that the person needs to be transported for psychiatric observation or law-based provision for 72 hours observation in a hospital that you can get someone admitted for without their permission. So it's involuntary.
For psychological
Yeah, it's for a psych eval to see, and then the psychiatrist can interview the person and see. Because unfortunately you get families where someone's a bit eccentric. They go like, oh, you're crazy, let's get you admitted.
Because the movie said, oh, they're schizophrenic.
But then that's not the reality at all. That's just the family not agreeing with this person. So it's a fine line. You need to protect the person's rights as well. But not lock the room and leave them there because it's not something that's going to go away. They really need to be on medication, and they need to be in an environment that supports and provides structure.
So these delusions and the hallucinations, from what you've said, I gather that it is multisensory. It feels real. You see things, you hear things, you smell things, you remember things, you think certain associations are made. Does that necessarily mean that all of that is present in every case of schizophrenia, or does it just manifest differently in different people? And then secondary to that, when we're saying hallucination, would I believe I am touching your hand now, I can feel you, I can see you, or is it pink dragons and LSD trip vibes? What are we talking?
I'm not sure about the LSD or how it compares, but it's definitely very individual to every person. Some people have a lot more the disorganized thoughts, the negative symptoms. Some people have a lot more of the positive symptoms and different mixtures of it. The most common is to see or to hear, so auditory hallucinations, and that is hearing a voice. Watching, which often goes along with a delusion, watching television and believing that the person on television is communicating to you instead of, so it's really that overall break with reality that does it. But again, that's on such a big sliding scale. I'm now referring to people that's living with us that has it in a more serious scale. There's also a fair amount of people that has a diagnosis because they've had a psychotic experience over 6 months. If it's just once off, you don't necessarily get diagnosed over a period, but they're on medication, they function normally. There might be some residual symptoms, but
it's not like you see them regularly standing in the corner of the yard shaking hands with Albert Einstein or something.
Not at all, no. And that does happen if it's more severe or if it's not medicated or managed well, or if there's often high stress is not great. High stress often triggers. So stress management is an important part of it. But no, if you come visit at YANA, some guys, you would be wondering, why is this person here? Because
I'm scared to visit places like that. I'm just going to be honest.
No.
I've got this image again, of someone standing there. I kiss him only.
And that is
orderly
not
putting a person in the bed in one of those huggy suits.
There's no physical constraints. We don't do anything. In fact, most of our guys are allowed to go to the shops during office hours and buy themselves, unfortunately, an energy drink most of the times. We do groups. We help them with budget planning. They work in the garden. They do woodwork, really nice things. It's not at all like that. And because the medication stabilizes that, and because they're in a stress managed contained environment with structure. So no, we wouldn't say. For a lot of them, you wouldn't even realize that there was a diagnosis.
Now, I need to just quickly ask triggers. Is this something that someone can do to themselves by like drug abuse or something? Is this purely genetic? What are we looking at? Is it a stress situation that can just flick the flame of the thing that's always been there since you were programmed by the big robots? What are we looking at?
All of the above. So the belief is that you're born with a predisposition that makes you more likely to have a mental illness, such as schizophrenia or even depression. And that often gets triggered then by stress. You go to varsity, it's different. You lose some of that containment, you're on your own, or you use drugs. A lot of cases is substance-induced schizophrenia. So you become psychotic when you use the substance, and then that kind of just stays long after the substance is worked out. It could be trauma. You could have had a head injury. There's damage to the frontal lobe, and then you have enough symptoms to be diagnosed as schizophrenic.
And the treatments for it's roughly the same?
Roughly the same, yes. So you get schizophrenia and you get schizoaffective disorder. Schizophrenia is just plain schizophrenia. Schizoaffective, there's a mood disorder as well, like bipolar or depression.
So it's like spicy schizo.
Yes.
Is it offensive to say schizo?
We prefer to say person diagnosed with schizophrenia because it's still not who you are.
Yeah.
It's something that you live with and you need to manage, but you still doesn't define who the person is.
Well, thanks for correcting me.
Yeah.
No, because I mean, it's words. You get used to saying things, and then only later on in life you start questioning.
Definitely. And I think that's a common slang for people that you determine to be a bit links of rechts of normal. It's easy to slang like that.
It's slang for them, or it is a name for someone in that field. If you know, you know. Do you know?
No.
Okay, I'll explain to you later.
Okay.
I've got so many more questions, but if I want to ask them, who do I ask and where?
You can contact me at YANA House. So that's YANA House. You can find us on Facebook, on our website. You can email me directly, linda@yana, the digit 1.co.za, and I can also help with any questions.
And if someone thinks they might have a loved one that is affected by this, are you the guys to call, or?
Yes. You can also reach out. We can give advice. We mostly focus on rehab of people that already has been diagnosed. But if you don't know where to find resources, we can always help point you in the right direction.
Now, I know that mental treatment specifically is a very expensive game when it comes to the medications. And so if someone feels that, look, it doesn't even help that I try to get the help because I know I won't be able to afford it. Do you have any advice for that?
Yes. Actually, I'd say about 95% of our residents has no income. They get SASSA, and then they are able to get the antipsychotics and the mood stabilizers at the clinic for free. So there is actually, you might wait in the queue a bit longer, but there is good facilities that does provide the medication for that.
Fantastic. I really thank you, because you really gave me a lot to think about and some new knowledge, and learned a few new words and unlearning a few old ones. But before I get to say goodbye to you, I feel that I need to learn something from you, not just about schizophrenia and what you do for a living, because I've worked as a counselor before in my life. I've worked in some charitable situations, and I know that it does affect a person when you deal with matters of the heart for a living. And you've been at it now for how long?
10 years. Not just at YANA. I was at a trauma counseling program before. At YANA now it's 6-7 years.
So the only logical conclusion I have is that you've learned a few deep life lessons as you went along. You've probably grown a lot. And don't tell me you haven't, because I don't think I've met a single person in or near your type of occupation that has not experienced that level of personal growth, right?
Yeah, no, it's definitely, you do learn a lot of coping mechanisms as well, but yes.
If you can then tell me, in your last 10 years working with people with mental issues, going through the changes, the difficulties with them, and experiencing what you experience from your side as a carer for those less fortunate than us. Is there one life lesson that you think that you can, I don't know, teach us and that can make our lives a bit more meaningful?
It's difficult to narrow it down, but I would go with to be clear is to be kind. To be clear in the situation and what's going to happen next, in the expectations. I think that creates a big sense of safety. And then also kindness goes a lot further than anything else. If you don't have any skills, just be kind. Because people also relate to that. And
that really rings true when I look at you. You've got the kindest eyes. I encourage you, even if you had only had to listen to this podcast, just have a look at the video. You really have, it exudes from you as a person.
Thank you.
So I don't take it lightly what you just said. You're not just preaching kindness. You can see that you live it, and what you do really matters. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for having us. It was great to talk
Awesome.
with you.
Anything else that I might have missed that you need to say into a podcast microphone that I can add to this?
I don't think so. I think we covered...
Come say hi at Boiler Room.
Yes, come say hi at Boiler Room would be great.
There we go. Thank you so much. Thank you again for listening to this chat. You know, it's always fun for me to have a slightly different angle than just the music side of things. But of course, there is the music side of things. So on the 14th of March, 2026, make sure you get your ass on over to Boiler Room. How much are tickets again?
It's 200 if you buy online, 150 if you buy at the Boiler Room bar.
So you pay more online.
200 online, 150 at the bar.
Okay,
yes.
But you say you can actually go buy at the bar now?
Yes.
And a beer.
Yes.
There you go. That's how you can do good. Go and get your tickets, but make sure you save up the extra money, because it's going to be that auction. There's going to be many, many chances for you to be an even better person with your money than you are right now. So, cool. I think that was it.
Good. Bye.
Bye. Cheers. Linda.
Prinsloo.
Linda Prinsloo from YANA House. If I call it that way. All right, cool. A charity for schizophrenia. A schizophrenic charity.
No, not a schizophrenic charity. Maybe a charity for people with schizophrenia.